There's no going
So you
back.
can do what you wanna do. You can do what you wanna do.
Hello again and welcome to day 16. I'm actually just going to have a bit of a talk today. I'm growing more and more concerned about the fact that artists may feel pressurized to conform to some sort of norm. What brings me to this is there's been a couple of things that have been shared on Facebook, and it happens all the time, and there seems to be a big movement at the moment on Facebook with sharing art that is highly photorealistic, like super realism, which is absolutely beautiful. Technically it's stunning work, but it may have a negative effect on artists who are not photorealistic in their style, and may make them feel that that is the way to go and that they need to conform. So I just want to take you back into history and discuss a couple of artists in history, and then come forward into modern times and the art that is going on at the moment. You know, we hear a lot of names, the old masters and the gurus of art in the old time, and we're expected to revere their work. And I'm going to be totally honest with you and tell you that there are some of them whose work I don't enjoy. And I'll name a few off the top of my head. People like Jackson Pollock, Jean Miro, Andy Warhol, Modigliani with his very long faces and very sad faces and his strange sloping shoulders. Picasso is a big one. I do not like Picasso's work. I think it's weird. Picasso's really early work and back in his blue era was really lovely, and then he seemed to lose the plot somewhere along the line, and yet Picasso is the top most expensive selling artist of all time, and I just don't get it. Honestly, I don't get it. I don't understand what it is that people see in the work that he produced. Another one is Kandinsky. I find Kandinsky's work a bit like Miro's work. It's weird, these strange lines and shapes. I don't get it. Jackson Pollock, that just threw paint at canvas. It's almost like anybody can do that. Now, I know that what I'm saying is highly sacrilegious, and I know that there's going to be people going, how could she say things like that, particularly about these heavily revered artists? And there's more. There's many more artists that I can name that I really don't enjoy. The point I'm trying to make here is that just because a piece of artwork seems to be culturally accepted doesn't mean that you have to like it. It also doesn't mean that you have to conform to that. It's because of viewpoints like this that I will probably never make it in the academic art world, because I don't mind telling somebody that I don't like Picasso, and I don't mind people looking at me strangely but how can you not like Picasso? You know, everybody likes Picasso. Picasso is such a wonderful artist. I don't think so. I think he lost the plot somewhere along the line, as did Jackson Pollock. You know, it's a mess. Anyway, I'm not here to actually debate my viewpoints on art. The point I'm trying to make here is that when you look at other masters, you know, people like Van Gogh, whose work I just adore, and Edgar Degas, whose work I just absolutely adore. Their work was beautiful. There is a relationship between you and the piece of artwork that you're looking at as a viewer. You form an emotional connection with a piece of artwork, and sometimes that emotional connection doesn't happen and sometimes it does. Every piece of artwork that you produce is going to be loved by somebody and it's going to be hated by somebody, because everybody's frame of reference, their expectations of art are different. Some people look at my work, particularly my earlier work, and think, oh wow, that's fantastic, it looks just like a photograph. Other people will look at the same piece of artwork and go, it looks like a photograph, you might as well take a picture. You know, where's the artist in it? And it was a criticism that I got once some time ago, having entered an art exhibition and being rejected. The reason I was rejected from this particular exhibition was because my art was too exact, it was too scientifically perfect, it was too photographic. And the criticism that I received in the crit was, where is the artist? Where is the communication of the artist themselves? And yet there are other exhibitions that accepted my work because it was so incredibly photorealistic. In recent years I've become much looser, and I've done it on purpose, and it's something that I wanted to do for myself. So I went and did a lot of work on changing the way that I approached a canvas. As an artist, you are who you are. The work that you produce comes from inside of you. It doesn't matter what somebody else thinks about it. You've got to get over trying to be something that you feel the marketplace is looking for at the moment because you want to become a successful artist. You need to stay true to yourself. Produce the work that comes from inside of you, because that will show on the canvas. Whatever work you produce is going to be loved by some and hated by others, because they are judging your piece of artwork as, would I hang that on my wall? And what is my emotional connection with it? And each person that looks at it is going to come from a completely different emotional space. Some artists, I said it in a video before, some artists paint out of a place of melancholy or out of a place of anger. And some artists can't work when they're happy, and Van Gogh was one of them. He was very aware of his depression and his, what we consider now as bipolar. He was very aware of it, and he wanted so desperately to be well, but he also acknowledged the fact that when he was feeling good, he didn't produce good artwork. It came from a dark place, possibly, inside of him. And I think as artists, we need to submit to what we produce. I've done a lot of work in recent years in making my artwork more loose, but I've never completely lost the representational side of it, because I'm a representative artist. I don't appreciate lots of splashes and things that aren't representational, and that's just where I'm coming from from an emotional perspective. I don't emotionally connect with a piece of artwork that is not representational. I can, however, appreciate a decorative aspect. I spent some time in a hospital last night. I took a friend of mine to the hospital. She had a bit of an injury and I needed to get her to the emergency room. And I was sitting in the reception area waiting while she was being treated. And they had two beautiful canvases in the reception area. And I stood up and had a good close look at it. And of course, I'm an artist, so I analyze it from a technical point of view. And I felt a little bit let down because there were some technical aspects of that canvas that did let it down. The paint was starting to crack. The artist had possibly mixed their paint with far too much terps, so it was a bit brittle. So from a technical point of view, it was disappointing. But when I stood back and had a look at it, they were very pretty. It was just splashes of silvery, lilac-y, bluey colors. It looked maybe a little bit like a butterfly, maybe a little bit like a flower. I'm not sure. It wasn't representational. I stood back and had a look at it, and I asked myself, is it art? It was pretty, and it certainly complemented the decor of the reception area, and it belonged there. But is it something that I would connect with? Is it something that I would purchase and hang on my wall? And the answer is no. It's not me. I like something that's representational, but that's me. This is something that we need to understand. Every artist is an individual, and every viewer of art is an individual, and the emotional response is completely unique from person to person. So where one person might like something, somebody else will think it's a load of rubbish. My sister-in-law, for example, loves Kandinsky, and I don't understand why, because I don't see what she sees in it. That doesn't make it a good piece of artwork. It doesn't make it a bad piece of artwork. It's the response that you have to an artwork. So your opinion of that artwork is right for you. So nobody can tell me that Picasso's artwork is the best artwork that was ever produced. In my opinion, Edgar Degas, for example, is one of the most beautiful painters of all time, as is Van Gogh. But then we can bring it into modern times, and we can have a look at people like Vladimir Vologov, who in my opinion has taken what Edgar Degas gave us and improved on it. Now, we as modern, contemporary artists have got the gift of hindsight. We can have a look at what has been done in the past. We can learn from those artists, and we can, I want to say, improve on it, and I don't mean that to sound arrogant at all. What I mean it to sound like is that we can take lessons from them and we can bring them into modern techniques, modern styles, modern interpretations, and we can make it better. Because there will be a time in a couple of 100 years where people will be looking back on our artwork and our generation and look at some of our artists as the greats, the all-time greats. There's another artist, Andre Cohen, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, who has also taken Edgar Degas' work and improved it, in my opinion. The work is absolutely beautiful. He has managed to bring a looseness, as does Vladimir Vologov. He manages to bring a looseness and a softness into the work without losing the representational aspect of it. So it hasn't become abstract. It's become loose, but it hasn't become abstract. A typical example of that is an artist, Thabo Nagay. Beautiful work. He does a lot of cityscapes, landscapes, street scenes, and it's very loose. Lots of brushstrokes, bold, lovely bright colours, or bold colours, so they're not necessarily bright, but he paints artificial nighttime light particularly well. So again, he's taken what Edgar Degas gave us, or even artists like Manet and Monet, he's taken what they've given us and he's put a modern artistic twist onto it, and it's now become the Impressionism of our time. So if there's one message that I want you to take away from this video, is be who you are, be true to yourself. Don't allow public opinion, possibly negative comments that might, you'll post your artwork to your Facebook page and you'll get people, 90% of people will comment positively, because people don't, if they don't feel good about your artwork, they don't necessarily comment. There will be some that will say negative things about your artwork. I can remember I was at a art market on a Saturday, early Saturday morning, one morning, and a lady walked into my store and had a look at all my paintings and walked around very quietly and then turned to me and said, very nice, but it's not for me. And it's very easy to take comments like that and feel a bit wounded about it, because you've emotionally invested in these canvases. Your heart and soul's gone into them. So when somebody says something relatively negative about them, or even blatantly negative about them, it can be hurtful. The idea is not to get hurt. Try not to get hurt by the negative things that people might say about your artwork. To take those things, decide for yourself, do I need to learn from this comment or not? Because everybody is an individual, and there's going to be people that love your artwork as much as what there's going to be others that hate it. So the topic of today's talk was what makes good art. And I think if I can just wrap it up in one sentence, I would have to say anything goes. And it sounds really ridiculous, but there is a lot of artwork out there that is all Emperor's New Clothes type thing, that people are voicing positive opinions of because they think that's what they should be doing, particularly of famous artists and famous paintings. But look inside yourself. Decide for yourself the art that you really love to produce, and produce that, whatever it might be, because that's what makes good art. What ends up on the canvas will be judged one way or another, but what makes really good art is if it's you being poured out onto the canvas, whatever it is that comes from inside of you, you pour it out onto your canvas, and that makes good art, regardless of what the outcome is. The outcome will always be subject to scrutiny. It will always have positive and always have negative comments. You've got to be happy with what you're putting onto the canvas. You've got to sit back, look at that and go, I like what I'm doing. That makes good art. And when you find that, thing about your art that stirs you emotionally, that makes you want to paint, that makes you look at your art and appreciate what you're seeing, that's when you're going to find a market. That's when, because you're now comfortable in your zone as an artist, the art community, or the art buying community that do appreciate that artwork, are going to respond to it from an emotional point of view, because your emotions will come forward in the canvas because it's coming from an emotional place. So yes, that was a whole long soliloquy, and the bottom line is, artists, be who you are. Don't allow somebody to change you. Neither your art teacher nor me on the other end of this camera, your buying public, your comments on Facebook. You find your niche, you decide what makes you tick as an artist, and that's what you stick to, and that's what makes good art. Thank you so much for joining me. It's really good to see you here again. Good luck with the artwork that you are producing, and please like and share and comment and do all the usual social media stuff. I'm really enjoying the interaction that I'm having with you guys. I'm seeing a lot of new people coming through. There's people that are sending me private messages as well, which is lovely. So thank you so much. I really am loving what's happening here on this Facebook page. Thank you again. Have a good Sunday. Bye-bye.
That's what you want to do.